Ba-ba. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Race Code War study, The Power of Words, Images, and Symbols on the Black Psyche by Kyrie and Ahero. And this text, I'm sure we can all agree on, is a excellent text to begin to study after the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept by Neely Fuller Jr. And just getting started, folks feel free to chime in whenever you want. No particular need to go in order when discussing the portions that we read, which were pages 1 through 14. I think that's the introduction and chapter 1. But because I know I'm not gonna talk about I guess it's like the prologue that much, I do want to mention the Black self-respect that Kyrie and Harold's victim parents instilled in him by teaching him about the system of racism and white supremacy as a young person. I think if more, or I think if all victim units did that, we'd have a lot more constructive results when dealing with the problem. So the final thing I'm going to say before we begin is I think this is the very first page is very important, and I'm gonna read it because it's highly constructive, and it's why we have decided to study this text. And this is the page that says, why this book? This book is designed to increase awareness of Black and white people as the role of communication in the continuing practice of racism and racial alienation. It is also designed to expose the use of racially loaded and color-coded language, the social changes that come about as a result of the civil rights movement force hardcore racist language, symbols, and images to go underground. Hardcore racist language and symbols, words such as nigger, blackie, shine, and the Confederate flag were so much an integral part of apartheid in North America that they had to be altered to go completely out of general usage. The forced language and symbolic changes were a part of the sweeping deconstruction of Western style white apartheid. While the practice of apartheid was dismantled, white supremacy domination did not go out of business. Those people who believe and practice white supremacy domination evolved a new type of linguistic communication to transmit messages about Black people using coded language. This happened for three basic reasons. First, the communication system is so deeply entrenched in derogatory color and racial bias that the transmission of racially based messages was relatively easy. Second, the color and racial bias that embedded deep within the language has never been sufficiently identified, challenged, or rooted out. The third reason is that racists have not demonstrated a desire or shown the will to stop the practice of racism, and as a result have discovered new ways to communicate in order to continue. For these reasons, it was possible for a coded language to evolve as a spinoff from hardcore racial communication. Some people might refer to this new code language format as political correctness. However, the words, symbols, and images are much more than politically correct language. They are used to label, brand, demean, and degrade Black people as criminals, rapists, whores, and many of the belittling stereotypes. Far too frequently, Black and white people regurgitate this as if the words, images, and symbols were correct. This perception has a tremendous impact on development and implementation implementation of social policy. In addition, the spiritual, psychological, economic, and political damage that it has done to Black people is simply too great to measure. So this page here serves as a really important indication of the power of words and how Black people, most of us unknowingly use highly racially coded language that helps to support racism, white supremacy, and we have no clue. And that is largely how white supremacy has stayed powerful. And white people, of course, are master of words, and they know. I think the majority of white people very much know that they're using racist code words. But this book is insanely important because I've been a prisoner of war, victim of racism, nigger, Black male for 30 years, and I am just now understanding the power of words, images, and all that stuff. So the white supremacists have done a really spectacular job at confusing non-white people. So go ahead.
Totally agree. Thanks so much for reading that. You said something that really resonated and that I can agree with. This book has even just the first 14 pages has really taught me the immense, powerful effects of words. And I just want to read two little sentences on Roman numeral IX underneath the sticks and stones section where it says, words can hurt and kill. Words and images impact the quality of human life. I always suspected that this was the case. There's a reason why these words exist, is to cause physical, mental, and spiritual harm to non-white people, especially people classified as Black. That's why these words exist. And just to reiterate the power of words, I could just go back into my mind and remember being in middle school, and I forgot how old you are when you're in middle school, but you're fairly young, not fairly young, you're just young, But we were forced to watch this movie called American History X, a very racist propaganda film. I'm not sure why the history class had to watch a film that wasn't based on history. But we watched this film, and the next day, I was being called nigger by the Mexican students and the white students. And all the Black kids were being called nigger after watching the racial war film that is American History X. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Yep. And I think that is why a lot of these films are designed, is to create those exact kind of situations. White people to practice white supremacy, exactly. So, and it also does a tremendous job at tearing down and diminishing the psyche, the confidence of Black people when you are watching a Black male get curb stomped, which happens in that film. So why they are having 13-year-olds watching a Black male get curb stomped by white supremacists is because they're practicing white supremacy. And this book is an excellent text for those who have not read the code, because it's like it's kind of it kind of covers a lot of what the code covers, and especially in the beginning parts. So I'm really happy to see the folks here who weren't here with us during the code meetings.
Also on the same page, I had came up with a question. Apparently, the Jewish people after the Holocaust, which was another example of white people practicing racism, white supremacy by mistreating people they classified as non-white in the form of a mass killings and mass torture encampments. But it says that the Jewish people established an anti-defamation league, and Black people are totally in a different situation and totally powerless in the system of racism, white supremacy. But I suspect that Anti-Defamation League is long overdue because in all areas of people activity, it appears that people classified as Black will continue to be niggerized and projected to be, nonsensical, illogical creatures of the universe.
Yeah. So I want to comment on I also had made a note of that. Like we definitely need a some sort of end anti-Blackness league, some sort of organization where we stamp out all images of anti-Blackness and niggerization propaganda. But of course, white people have not allowed us to do that, as they have allowed whatever the so-called Jewish people to do so, which is really incorrect how that has happened. And I'm reminded of what you read earlier about how Black people are taught that words, don't hurt, words have no power, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words may never hurt you or hurt me. When words have been used to orchestrate the demise of millions upon millions of people, living people. So words are insanely powerful, and this book is required reading for non-white people, especially Black people. Any other folks who'd like to chime in?
I think that's really interesting, and I never thought about it now, but that's a really good idea, Cherry, especially for like younger kids. You know how they do like media literacy? Like they should have like anti-Blackness literacy training for like younger children, because a lot of times they don't even realize the words that they're using are like, I like in the book how he puts a word and then he correlates like what it actually means or like what its deeper meaning is. I feel like they should really, like, instead of having spelling words for kids, they should have things like that, because there's a lot that is so subliminal and you don't even realize that you're being like having internalized anti-Blackness and a lot of the things that you're saying. I don't know. I hope that makes sense, but that's what I was thinking about when Cert was talking about an anti-defamation league.
Yep, agreed. And I definitely fell victim to using the word dark in the incorrect way. So that is something that is prominent within victims throughout the prison planet we are all being dominated on.
I wanted to share one more thing from the preface. Something that I have experience with and witnessed and have participated in is Black people using words to not only impress white people, but also to sound cute. My most recent recollection of this was in 2019, where I witnessed a Black male victim of racism, white supremacy from Nigeria, using words to impress white people, and in this interaction, I was his so-called nigga. So this is what happened. I was at an event for students, and there was alcohol involved, and the Black male was intoxicated, and with only two Black males in this entire room. And he comes up to me and he starts yelling. Keep in mind, he has a very deep African accent. I don't think he uses this word frequently. I never ever used the N-word with the A at the end. But he comes up, and I know he's doing it to impress people now that after I read this book, but he's like, "Oh, my nigga, that's my nigga right there. You're my nigga." And very incorrect. I definitely felt it made me feel bad. So I told him in that moment, "Hey, I'm not your nigga or a nigga," because I thought that was the most correct response. But I have witnessed Black people using words to, sound smart or cool, or to just, embody what they have been trained to think what being Black is, which is, just being dumb and non-constructive.
Yeah, which it takes me back to that anti-defamation league is so necessary for Black people. When we need an anti-Blackness League Defense Force committee or something, where whenever there's an image of a black person not solving problems, or a black person being silly or stupid, that image is not allowed to be circulated anywhere. Just how the Jewish people have been able to do so. So, oh, and I also can recall that phenomenon now that you mention it, of black people, black victims who will be classified as more comfortable. Like they maybe don't come from just a hood, or concentration camp that is so devastated with poverty and violence. They may be allowed to live in a comfortable area. And I myself have noticed, me being a black male from the hood, and being around more comfortable victims, they often will use the word nigga to I don't know, get around me, to get closer to some kind of like more authentic hood blackness that they think it is. But I remember that in middle school, being around black people who were black but not from the hood, and they would like to say nigga and all that silly stuff to show off. And I didn't really start saying nigga until I got to college, because I started listening to more niggerized music in college, I suppose. But really, really retarded behavior, I'm glad I've been able to correct. And Miss Ashford, you're going to chime in?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say.
Go ahead.
Okay. Oh, were you gonna go, Miles? You can go. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Oh, sorry. What I was gonna say was, well, I'm really enjoying this book. I'm very intrigued by the way in which the language explains things very to the point. There's no example that he'll give that can be disputed, because it's things we've experienced. And especially coming with the background of Dr. Francis Cress Welson's ISIS papers, it's just more affirm. It's almost like stating it in more layman terms, rather than taking the science out of it and just telling you what it is. And I really appreciate that about this book. I too am in agreement that we need our own form of defense, or defamation of character, or defamation defense league, with that the Jewish people have been able to do, the gay community have been able to do. It's even mentioned there how any movement that is black, that is involved in like Black power from our age, is like transformed into like No Child Left Behind, or women empowerment. It's very, you can see that it's now really painting out the codes in which that we are been experiencing and been living under, and it allows you to not participate. And I do believe we do need to step up our own form of defense league in terms of correcting certain statements and not spelling out these negativity, manifesting it for them. Because at the end of the day, we understand as melanated people, the words that we have power. We were taught not to believe it. So it has how the book has described it, in a sense. Hi. Sorry, we were taught not to believe it in the way that it's been described to us, which is good for our mental capacity, not taking on the hits. But what we've allowed, like the book has described, is years and centuries of bad spellings being sent onto our people, bad spellings being sent onto our characters and our beings, and adopting these characters if you're just waking up through sleep, in a sense. As we wake up into understanding racism is 100% real, that's the only thing that could shadow what we was experiencing. And I understand that imprint was strong in me, because I never wanted to ever say white supremacy in a work setting. It took an Asian person describing their experiences and being more affirmative and saying, I definitely believe that I experienced white supremacy. I was so shocked in the room that she mentioned that I let me know how much I have had to shelter or like pacify myself to not give an imprint of what I'm actually experiencing, which is insane. The book really does a good description of showing how white people have been able to status quo it, and we go along with it, which is breaking down our mental health rather than addressing the mental health issues that we are normalizing, and then creating more bastardized versions of it, like just like constantly twerking or going to the pub aimlessly to have drinks when it's not our culture, and getting pissed poor drunk and like leaning sideways. That's not our culture to do, but yet we've adopted that as a method of having fun, and bastardizes that when knowing we don't actually have the funds or the we don't have the time to be that idle. So anyway, the point, lots of points, lots of commentary made there, but that's my kind of summarization of majority of what I picked up from the book, and yeah, from the preface, which is amazing.
Thank you, Ms. Nebula. Yeah, I appreciate something you pointed out. I'll call it a key word. You said insane, and in order to exist in this system, one must be insane. This is a very insane and incorrect system. So the behaviors you described are insane behaviors that have been plugged into our brain computers, our psyches, and it's just a few of the millions of behavior patterns that we have been programmed to think, speak, and act on, unfortunately. And I think with the closest thing we can get to an anti-defamation league, anti-blackness league, is practicing code, spreading the 10 stops, being truthful about the incorrect system we are living in, being truthful about who is causing all this incorrectness. And this most certainly is white people, racist men, racist woman, and racist child. Any folks want to chime in before?
I wanted to say that I agree. And I think that unfortunately, like non-white people, especially Black people, they feel like they have to have their own like they feed into the whole like race code, because in instances they'll be like, oh, you know how they do us, or they'll say certain things instead of just saying like white people mistreat non-white people. So I think it's like important for, I guess, me and other people to just be more upfront about what I'm trying to say, because people will try to use other euphemisms as if you like understand what they're saying, because I guess like a lot of people are really scared of just saying like, hey, we live under white supremacy and white people mistreat us.
Yeah, and that just goes to show that the severe conditioning, programming, and victimization we have all suffered, to the point that we either do not have the awareness to call it what it is, or we are just dominated by so much fear and anxiety when it comes to the race problem, that we do not discuss the race problem in a constructive manner. And it's understandable. The system is very powerful, very vile, very wicked, and a lot of incorrect things happen. People are murdered, killed, destroyed 24/7 by attempting to produce constructive results or to correct this issue. So it makes sense, but I'd rather be dead than a happy, miserable slave. So I think a system of justice will be much better than what we have. Will be much better when we produce it, and it will get done. I am quite certain. Mr. Kwaku, would you like to share some words?
Yes, thank you. Very well said, everyone. I just wanted to kind of share my thoughts so far about the book, going into it. For me, I think it really reminded me of the ISIS papers and kind of what Race10 said earlier about it kind of being an extension of Area 9. For me, when I was reading the ISIS papers, one thing that I guess a concept that was hard for me to understand was the concept of like viewing symbols and symbolism. So I thought that starting out with this book, that's kind of the same vibe that I was getting. I feel like this book will help me greatly and understanding symbols. I feel like I'm getting better at seeing the symbols, but I feel that the depth that this book goes into when it comes into symbols is kind of mind blowing, especially in the examples he gave later on in the chapter about the Republican convention. I would have never, I don't like, you know, I see these things happening because this just happened at the Democratic convention when Joe Biden won. Same kind of things are happening. Oh, you know, it's just you know, Black people being powerless and helpless once again. But really understanding the kind of symbols and what exactly is being communicated to us, right? And this whole concept of racial communications, I thought was very powerful, and I'm looking forward to getting and understanding more about that. The sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. So that was another interesting part because, you know, growing up, I without a doubt in my mind, I think every single Black person has been told that. Um, you know, you're gonna get called a nigger, you're gonna get called a nigga, somebody's gonna undoubtedly make, you know, monkey noises at you, but don't worry about those things. Those things can never hurt you. You know, they're only words. You know, you don't gotta worry about that. But you know, I think that definitely, you know, experience a lifetime of that can definitely contribute to the deep mental illness that we as a people suffer from. So for him to kind of start out the book with that, I think definitely sets the tone for what we're going to be getting into. And, you know, very much emphasizing that words can hurt and kill. Words and images impact the quality of human life. And I think that that's still like a huge concept that today even a lot of Black people don't understand, that the power of words. So that's where this book kind of comes into play for me, is that, I shouldn't say play, but, you know, what goes towards solving this problem is that it builds on the concept of being able to use symbols and understand symbols, as well as understanding the power of words. That's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Nanaya.
Yes, thank you. So some of the things that stood out to me with the section that we read was, especially in the sticks and stones, I know a few of you already mentioned this, but just the power of words and how we've been trained and manipulated to believe that words don't hurt us. And also how later on it's like, okay, well, I'm traumatized by every time someone says this word or someone says this phrase, I'm triggered, but I'm not supposed to be hurt. So I guess it's just a phase. I guess it's just me being emotional or me being this. So I think it's also a deterrent from Black people to analyze themselves and which words that they are traumatized by, because it could be a form of, again, being oppressed, or a form of being mistreated verbally, whether it's by someone at school or whether it's by anybody, someone just mistreating them. But it also comes to my next point, is the importance of words being used. Because even having conversation today, there's a lot of talking, but the words that they're using doesn't make sense. Because when you have conversation, it's almost like, can we understand each other? But no one is understanding each other, just talking to talk. And it just, I don't know, it just, now that I'm able to slow it down and really try to understand what people are saying, and then when I ask them, oh, what does that word mean? Like, what context are you using the word? Like, what is your definition of that word? They're not able to explain that word to me. So I think it's just really, like, for Black people to really slow down, especially the words that we are using towards each other and around us, even in our just saying it out loud, like, just slow down, because some of the words that we use, like, I know it catches me sometimes when I say, what's the word I always say? Like when someone asks me, oh, how are you doing? I say, hanging in there. No, I'm not hanging anywhere, you know? But it's just like thinking of that phrase that a lot of people do say that. And I'm thinking like, whoa, why do we say this phrase? And it's so common that we say it, but this could be something that could trigger somebody, you know? So it's just thinking of these words that we use and we make it so common. So it's like almost we're like numb to it, but not really. So it's just almost important that I just want to continue to stress the importance of when we use our words, when we are explaining something, we are wanting our listener or whoever is receiving the information to understand, one, what we're saying, and two, make sure we understand what we are saying. So use the words that you know. If you don't know the word, don't use it or look it up before using it. I think it's very important that we really know what we're talking about as a society, as Black people in general. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's not a, you just, what you said just opened up some sort of portal in my mind where I'm reminded of a show I never watched, but I do know the theme song. That's that 70s show, hanging out down the street, the same old thing we did last week. You know, that is the programming giving to Black people. Mill around, don't do anything constructive, you know, be on a pattern of doing the same old thing, whether it's, you know, hanging out with your boys and drinking 40s, or, you know, going to getting bedazzled with your nails and the hair and whatnot, and going out to the clubs, going to Las Vegas every month. We have been totally programmed to not only operate on incorrect words, but these words sort of create like a blanket of non-constructive behavior for us to operate on and to stay on. So I really appreciate your words, because I'm reminded of that that brainwashing, brain trashing theme song from that 70s show, which Black people seem to have taken non-white people, all non-white people seem to have been taken to the heart, because that's our behavior patterns.
And can I say one more thing?
Please do.
Yes, and then also think about, I remember, I'm not sure if any of you guys know the Ring Around the Rosie song or the rhyme or whatever.
Yeah,
That's just like ring around the rosy, something ashes, we all fall down. Like really just analyzing those songs or rhymes, whatever you want to call it, like nursery rhymes. But yeah, that's just another example. I wanted to just share that. Just thinking about those and really analyzing, especially when we're going into repeating them and singing them and humming them. That's very important to think about.
Yeah.
My mom hated Ring Around the Rosie. She'll have my nieces and nephew not sing it.
She picked up on the incorrectness, the incorrect messages hidden, embedded in the song. Go ahead. Paul. Oh, I think Mr. Dan, and then you can go ahead, Mr. Ray.
Okay, can I be heard?
Yes.
Okay. I was going to say that, so it was mentioned earlier about Black people using fancy words sometimes around or in the presence of white people. Sometimes when that happens, sometimes it's a word we can't even pronounce, let alone know the definition of. But I did have two quotes that I wanted to share. The first one is on page 2 under the heading of racial communications. First paragraph, at the very bottom of it, it says, even in the year 2003, white people still tell Black people what to do in nearly every facet of life. This reality is true and is a fact of life, despite the denials of many Black and white people. Black people literally depend on white people for survival and have not shown a collective belief that they can do it for themselves. So that shows, that this book was written almost 2 decades ago. 2003, we're in 2021. You could pretty much revise that sentence to where even in the year 2021, white people still tell Black people what to do in nearly every facet of life. And give it 3 more months from now, you'll be able to revise it to even in the year 2022, where white people still tell Black people what to do in nearly every facet of life. And then I had the other quote I wanted to share was on page 4, and this is at the very top of the page. Whether in South Africa, Washington, D.C., or Detroit, areas where Black people are supposed to be in charge, Black people are still dependent on the expertise, money, technology, and thinking of white people. So I mean, both of these codes are still relevant to this day. I mean, as far as technology, right now we're allowed to use Zoom, and that's all I got for right now.
Yep, and I have examples of what you just mentioned, and that we're gonna show. I'm gonna show in a little bit. Mr. Reid.
Yes, I just wanted to also add earlier you all were discussing the ring around the rosies, and I saw this online. It says, talking about symbolism, uh, ring a ring rosies is all about the Great Plague, the apparent whimsy being a foil for one of London's most atavistic dreads. In parentheses, thanks to the Black Death. The fatalism of the rhyme is brutal. The roses are a euphemism for deadly rashes. The poisies, a supposed preventative measure. The tissues pertain to sneezing symptoms, and the implication of everyone falling down is, well, death. And so that was interesting that you all were talking about that earlier, and I wanted to ask any of the victims across the pond, do you all see any symbolism surrounding this topic over there today?
I do not.
That's a good question. By the symbolism of, do you mean singing those nursery rhymes and then now witnessing outbreaks of when you sneeze, you
COVID, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, so definitely bad spelling. That I used to sing that in primary school, but I believe the picking up the daisies part was the cure. So boiling daisies was like a way of clearing the chest and being preventative. So the last part of the song was a tissue, we all jump up. But it's still a negative spell. I guess they did it to remind themselves of their plague, but without that information of it being from a plague, innocent nursery rhymes are literally, we a lot of the English folklore nursery rhymes is their education, but without the right information, we just reiterate it out into the ethos and cosmos without any direction. But they have that knowledge to themselves that's something that they pass down for their own information. Like the same with chickenpox. Like most people from outside of the UK or Caribbean country don't actually realize it's only native to these like European countries. But rather than classifying it as things that should be screened, we are the ones that are screened before we travel from African countries and continents, because of there's no stigma attached to the Europeans with infections and disease. Well, it's more attached to some of the healthiest people on the planet whose blood are being used to find out how to prevent themselves from being sick. So, irony.
That's so interesting because go ahead. I don't know if you want to respond.
Go ahead.
Ashley can go, Ashley.
Oh no, it's not specifically related, but I was just thinking about what Mize was saying, because I recently read an article with these two females from Mexico, and they basically set up like they're both married to white males, and they set up a taco truck, and they called it like, I think something like all natural. And they were talking about how it's like different from other Mexican food because the ingredients are all natural. And I just thought about how they really coded it to imply that like the Mexican vendors who are just like, not married to white people and just like regular Mexican people, their meat is somehow dirty or diseased compared to like these, Mexican women who have the money of their white husbands to like help pay for this. And I just was thinking about that because Mary was talking about how it's kind of implied that non-white people, the things that they have, or they carry diseases and things like that. It reminds me of like all of the way that people talk about Chinese food and MSG too.
Yeah. All in the words. Go ahead, sir.
Thanks for sharing. On page 2, I thought this was such a concise wording and constructive use of words, and it's something I'm going to remember because it's pretty interesting how many non-white people actually are so victimized that they actually think racism or white supremacy is their fault, and they think that they are totally unaware of the economic exclusion and how the society is geared towards their annihilation or their imprisonment. So on page 2, I thought this was really, really important. And he's speaking of the social reality of racism, white supremacy. The book states, if this social reality did not exist, Black people would own and control wealth and resources at the 15% level or an equal percentage based on their population. And of course, everyone listening, people in the group should be aware that Black people classified as Black, are at the bottom of every single list when it comes to jobs, when it comes to housing, loan ownership, when it comes to access to wealth and economics, at the bottom. When it comes to crime and imprisonment, we are disproportionately considered to be the most imprisoned and the most crime-centered anomalies on planet Earth. I thought that was really interesting because the book is giving me ammunition. So when I'm using my words, I can just say, hey, if racism wasn't real, then on this planet, especially in United Kingdoms and in the UK and America and Western societies, it would be more of a balance between the races. Black people wouldn't be at the bottom every single social economic ladder there is.
Correct. And if a good question that I like to ask people is that, okay, are Black people naturally like inferior people who just who are deserving of being at the bottom of the social ladder? Are we just this silly and this stupid that we have like found ourselves in this position, or has some thing, some group orchestrated, planned this reality for us? I'm going to read from page 1 because I disagree with some of this here, but it's very constructive. I'm going to say why I disagree with some of it. And this is on page 1. On the other side, the white male, hearing and seeing the same. Actually, I mean, just to be more for folks who don't have the book yet and who may catch this broadcast later, I'm going to read the paragraph above that one as well. Again, page 1. Hidden in plain sight, untangling the web. The Black man will come to believe his own inferiority, degradation, and slave status. He will act against himself and against his people with self and race destructive behaviors. He will never know what triggers this destructive behavior. He will not understand the nature of this oppression until the images, words, colors, and symbols and messages that are deeply embedded in his psyche are decoded and unscrambled to reveal their hidden derogatory racial and color meaning. On the other side, the white male, hearing and seeing the same derogatory words, images, and symbols, will perceive the Black male on that basis. The words, symbols, and images that he has of himself will be completely different. The white man is imaged as a god on earth. There are thousands of pictures depicting Jesus and God in his image. Some of the greatest symbols of supernatural male power, such as Superman and mighty Thor with his big hammer, are in his image. The white man is told and reminded in millions of subliminal and overt ways that he and his people are smarter and that they are born to rule. The white male will never understand the nature of white supremacy domination and how it impacts the Black male and shapes his thinking. It shapes his own thinking and beliefs until the hidden racist messages, images, words, and symbols are decoded. And I think he's incorrect in saying that the white male will never understand the nature of white supremacy domination and how it impacts the Black male and shapes his own thinking and beliefs until the hidden racist messages, images, words and symbols are decoded. White people, they definitely know how damaging all of this racist images, racist coding, and racist words. They definitely know that these tools of these weapons against us, they definitely know that they harm us and they retard us severely. So I don't know where he's getting at this point, but I do appreciate the logic here because it's correct. I'm reminded of we have Miss B, who's reporting, who shares some reports with us, and that group. They always say there's a post that said they're being born white is a gift from God, and that's the kind of thinking that is produced within the brain computer of white people because 24/7 they are dominated, surrounded, and engulfed with images that says white is right, worship white, white is powerful. I'm just always reminded of Dragon Ball Z. We got this magnificent piece of art, animation, character design, storytelling, all centered and dedicated around white people. And in this show, the white people are the strongest, and their only concern is with getting stronger and dominating the people who they want to dominate. So it's just when they're getting these messages, it's no surprise that they think that being white is a gift from God. It goes with the white supremacist programming. So a lot has to be corrected. And I'm reminded when we did our conversation with white people, we had Stephen Singleton. He recalled he having a black associate, and he was very young when he was able to pick up on how the racism was affecting his black male associate. So they know very much. They know at an early age as well. I saw Miss B, but do you still want to chime in, Miss B? And then now, yeah.
Yes, I appreciate this book because this book and others because it helps me to be more mindful of the words that I use, and um, I I often I realize that I'm incorrect in the words that I use. Like I'll go immediately to the code book and then I'll go to the Webster dictionary and I'll be slightly off. And the mark is to always to aim for accuracy, right? So with this book, I don't want to say a problem, but I find it interesting, and I could be wrong, but the very first line. This book is designed to increase awareness of Black and white people. I have an issue with this. I don't think that white people need awareness, and I don't think they need increased awareness. I think that white people are not ignorant or they're already aware. So yeah, that part I have an issue with, but I could be incorrect. Maybe there are some white people that are ignorant. I'm not aware of those people. Another line from the very first let me see what else. Some people might refer to this new code language format as political correctness. I remember there was a TV show called Political Correctness with a comedian, a white guy. I can't remember his name at the moment. And yeah, I find that very interesting that he had a show named Political Correctness. Yeah, you know what? That's it for now.
Yeah, I think. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm glad 0526. I had that exact. I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, I had the exact same passage on page 1 underlined as well, where it said about the white male will never understand the nature of white supremacy and domination, etc., and how it impacts the black male and shapes his own thinking and beliefs. And I thought, the white male will never understand. I'm thinking, well, this is a race code war book about the use of words that white supremacists I mean, basically, white supremacists, racist man, and racist woman have put the code into effect. They created the code. So I think white people, most white people in this world, are fully aware of the impact that it has on Black people. But I just think they just don't really, they just don't really care about that. And I think it's interesting as well. The other caller, I can't remember your name. Sorry. When they were talking about the imagery in films, etc. It ties in with that same passage as well, like how you're saying, like, I think it was American History X that he watched, and then the next day he was called nigger at school. And lots of non-white people were called nigger at school, and it's because these films are usually done by the white supremacist, racist man and racist woman, with their understanding that it's a glorification and an advancement, I guess, of the whole system of racism and white supremacy. So I think white people are very, very much aware of the code already. I think it's Black people that are really confused about that, and it's Black people that need awareness, not white people. So the first line there that Helen B was talking about, I think, that rang true with me as well. With the this book is designed to increase awareness of Black and white people. I think really it should just increase awareness of Black people, because I think most white people already know, since they are in charge of creating that code, the white racist code, sophisticated or not, in the first place. And also on the page 1, where it says about, on the other side, the white male hearing and seeing the same derogatory words, etc., and in the same paragraph down the bottom, it said the white male will never understand the nature of white supremacy. I'm not really sure as why he has emphasized the white male, as if, because, as far as I understand, I could be wrong, but as far as I understand, the system of racism and white supremacy could not have existed for as long as it has without the full participation of racist women also. So emphasizing that, and usually it's a white supremacist trick that they usually play when they say, like, white supremacy, this white man's this and this white man's doing that. No, white women are just as much as responsible and culpable in that system of racism and white supremacy. But that's enough for now, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Smoky Damages. Really well said and very insightful. We can have Nanaya and then Dan and then Mr. Ray 150.
I think you're breaking up. Can I be heard?
Yeah, just try.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thank you. Also, just to add on to page 1, I did read that section towards the bottom about the white male and their nature to understand. When I read that part, I have a note here that says, like, they can't understand because they are white. And the reason I feel that I wrote that note is because when I read this sentence, it's almost like they can't understand the entire nature of white supremacy. They can see, like, oh, if I do this action, this will happen to this. This will be the response. So if I decide to create this code, all non-white people or all Black people will decrease, or they'll like not be existing in the world, or whatever it is. Like that's like the result they see. But I don't think they can really understand the entire nature of it, because they don't understand like what goes on in our head. Like, as much as we tell them, we can't even explain to them the impact of our own thinking, what we believe in the system, because we're using the words that they created. I don't know how to explain what I'm trying to say, but it's almost like I see it differently than you all, just because like I see, like, I can't understand how a white person is going to understand like entirely the impact of racism, white supremacy, because they're white, if that makes sense. And that's how I feel too when he's talking about where was that? Even in the first line where it says to increase awareness, I think one of the things that I got out of this sentence is increase awareness of the role of communication. So when I'm thinking of communication, that's not always looked at from like the natural eye. Not everyone is, as we mentioned, how does communication play a role in racism, white supremacy? Like we know that actions and behaviors play a role, but how does communication or how does our words play a role in this entirely? So I think too, and also after like generations, like we can say like, oh, all the white people should know by now, or they should know what they are practicing and understand fully. But I still don't believe that they do, because I can probably go to a random white person on the street and be like, I don't know. But I think white supremacy, if we're going to clump it obviously as a whole, there's I'm gonna use quote unquote like masterminds who say like I understand it through and through, but then there's like the ones who trickle out, like the outliers, where it's like I don't really understand racism, but I know I practice it. I don't understand white supremacy, but I know I practice it. If that makes sense at all. Thank you.
My 2 cents to that is just I suspect the average white person overstands racism, white supremacy in its most basic form, as in I am white, I get treated better than Black people. And I also suspect that the average white person overstands how to talk to a Black person, whether they're trying to get information from them, whether they're trying to get no matter what kind of response they're trying to get from a victim of racism, the average white person, I suspect, is capable of that. I do suspect there are less intelligent white people who may not have a great understanding of white supremacy, but they definitely have an understanding of the basics, that they are white, and that comes with power and the ability to mistreat victims of racism, white supremacy. And I think that's what the code, the code book has attempted to display, that and what Brian was mentioning earlier, smoking damages, that white people have created the code and they have their own united independent code of practicing racism, white supremacy. So I think victims should never ever think that a white person doesn't understand or overstand. They understand, they just don't give a fuck about Black people, non-white people, and the suffering that they are allowing to happen, and that they are that they are allowing to happen, that they want to happen. But again, I may be incorrect as well.
I think that was well said, 0526. I'd like to just echo that as well. I think the amount of white people that I've had communication with in my life, I think the average white person in this world definitely knows, like you say, they've already got their united independent code system concept of white supremacy that they follow. And one thing I think that a lot of non-white people forget is that a lot of white people are just deceptive. They are masters at deception. And sometimes when you talk to white people about this subject, they usually lie. They usually lie about how much they know about racism, and we just didn't know that racism was affecting you that badly. They know exactly what it means to be white in a system of racism, white supremacy. And I remember Neely Fuller usually says, and Dr. Francis Chris Welsing as well, says that white people can show you better than I could ever tell you. And usually with things, I mean, Jane Elliott has said it, admitted racist. Barbara Trepanier said it, admitted racist. Peggy McIntosh has said it, admitted racist. White people know exactly what it means to be racist, and what they don't suffer racism. That's true. But usually when pushed on the surface, when you first start conversations with some white people, they do pretend that they have no idea. But when pressed, usually they reveal it all the time. And a lot of times, even if we look at things like racist jokes, usually when white people tell racist jokes, there's more often than not, there's some sort of violence being done to that non-white person if you analyze and break down most racist jokes and stuff. So I would say they are fully aware, even though they don't like to admit it to non-white people. I would say they're definitely fully aware of what they're doing.
Couldn't have put those combination of words together better. Thank you, Mr. Brian. I believe it was Dan, and then Ray, and then Sid, and then Ms. Nanaya.
Okay. The one thing I would add in regards to that one sentence with the black and white people, I think I don't know anything about writing a book or getting it published or edited, but you have to put your brain computer and be able to work and be able to decode certain things. You know, that might have been the only way this book might have been able to get published. Um, you know, so just have your brain computer on while reading through certain things in the book. So that's my comment, and I'll pass it over to the next person.
Did Sir want to go? Sir next.
Yeah, I don't mind going, but I don't think I was the next person to go. I just wanted to read from page 2. I'm sorry. Yep. Page 4. So basically, from this page, I took away something that I've suspected for a long time, and which has been reiterated in a lot of books that I read, including the ISIS Papers, The Code, and Urugu. Basically, the state of powerlessness and Black people who are racially showcased actually don't own much, and if they do, there's someone above them guiding and ensuring that they use their money the way that they are enforced to. So it talks a bit about the racially coded systems. It says racially coded systems of language and communication are used in the modern era to maintain domination. The racial codification and colorization of words, images, and symbols is one of the most effective and still largely undetected methods of transmitting derogatory racial messages. Racially coded communications, i.e. racial code words, racial images, racial symbols, hidden racial messages, word bombs, and racial colorizations and racial rituals are the workable tools that promote white supremacy. I now suspect, after reading parts of this book, that almost every interaction between a white person and a non-white person is suspicious of being an act of racism, white supremacy, on the mere basis that we don't have agency. At least the same agency that white people have. You definitely don't have that. And the fact that those who are given breadcrumbs are extremely surveillance, and their lives are dictated and guided by the white supremacy people, the people who run the show, who run the system of racism, white supremacy, who refine it, who understand it, and who know that it's necessary for them to continue dominating the planet. So when I read this, I just thought about just how much work that it needs to be done. Even having entire countries where there's just Black people. This is a Black country, quote unquote, or a Black continent, where the government officials are all basically bought off and owned by Western influencers and white people essentially. I'll stop there.
I just wanted to add on to what Smoking Damages was saying when he was talking about how when you press white people, then their true intentions begin to show. And that's one thing that the current white supremacists are not used to, being asked questions directly indicting white people. And so that's what Black people are going to have to get comfortable doing. We are going to have to look at white people as the cancer on earth. Now, if these so-called good white people do not have the ability to get a hold on the bad ones, then what good are they? You know, we have to be logical about this. And hold on for a minute. Get my book. Going to page 1 that you all disagree with, the white male will never understand the nature of white supremacy, domination, and how it impacts the black male and shapes his own thinking and beliefs until the hidden racial messages, images, words, and symbols are decoded. They can't afford to understand. Their chief tactic is white genetic survival. Whatever is good for them is bad for us. I think what Mr. Inaharo may meant, I'm not trying to speak for him, but just my thoughts that we're asking courteously for justice. And so white people are going to have to understand that they are at negative birth rate. They are dying out. So it's no use sabotaging the inevitable. And if that means that no white person is in existence, so be it. You know, so far in recorded history, I don't know of any non-white group on planet Earth whose chief mission was to eliminate white people. No, what we're doing now, we're all comparing notes from around the planet. And we need to all be on one accord about what the problem is. That's all I have for now.
Thank you.
Totally agree.
I agree, Mr. One-Flaster. The problem is white people, racist man, racist woman, and a racist child. And I'm sure most correct thinking victims of racism who want a system of justice would have no problem in helping white people to maintain their numbers if that is what we need to do in order to have a system of justice. It's just that the racist man, racist woman have to come out of their deceptive tactics, and they have to be truthful with why this system is in place and why they have been mistreating us, victims of racism, non-white people, especially black people, with such disdain for however many hundreds of years it's been. So yeah, thank you, Mr. 150. Very well said. I'm gonna read from page 4. And it says here, the status quo is now portrayed by white supremacists as a normal state of existence, a sort of manifest destiny and the divine right to rule. The domination has remained intact despite a myriad of revolutions, civil wars, geopolitical conflicts, and world wars. It is still the most powerful and most enduring political, economic, and social force on the planet. Its sovereignty has never been dethroned. White supremacy domination has been devastating to the history, culture, economic, and political development of Black people. It has disabled Black people, destroyed Black unity and Black culture. The greatest evidence of this is that after more than 400 years of social interaction, Black people still remain economically, politically, and socially dependent for their survival. Despite all of the public appearances, Black people have never been allowed to really be in charge or in control. I'm reminded of some codified phrases that non-white people should start saying to one another when they greet each other. Like, white people are still in charge. It's very much one of them. White people are still in charge, and non-white people are still being mistreated. Non-white people, Black people are still at the bottom. Is what we need to be. No longer have shame about saying, because I have no shame, me, myself, 566, admitting that I am a nigger, a victim of racism, prisoner of war, Black male. I've been classified as a Black male, whatever the hell that means. The white supremacists say it means to be what Sir has said earlier, the worst thing on the planet. But I have never experienced shame around being a Black male. I don't experience shame being aware that there's a war being waged against me. And I think a lot of victims of racism do have some sort of shame associated with their classification of being Black. And that is partially one of the reasons, some of the reasons why victims of racism have a hard time saying white people, focusing on white people, focusing on the race problems, because we don't want to be associated with the truth at all, because white people have done such a spectacular job at controlling the status quo for so long. Because my retarded nigger self, once upon a time, I used to think that the status quo, the system of white supremacy, was just random. I thought the planets, the worlds align in a random way, and white people just randomly happen to be at the top, and Black people randomly happen to be at the bottom. Now, how stupid does that fucking sound? You know, excuse my swearing, but I'm just annoyed and angry about how retarded I used to be by the system of white supremacy, about how stupid and incorrect I used to view my reality, the reality of victims of racism. This is not random. Black people didn't randomly have their balls cut off from them while being hanged and set on fire by white people. That's not a random occurrence. This is a plan, a sophisticated, designed, deceptive plan that is taking place throughout the entire planet. And it's every single Black person's job, duty, responsibility to get serious and get with stopping this insanity, this incorrectness. I may be wrong. You know, maybe we came here to literally only be human batteries for white people, but I think not. We have to replace the status quo, white supremacy, with a system of justice, simply guaranteeing no one is allowed to be mistreated, and those who need help receive constructive help. Yeah, I'm in my line for now. See if folks have to chime in.
Yeah.
I
A term
totally.
that came to me from this book was racism hidden in plain sight, and a great example was the suburban neighborhoods. I knew that there's like a long history of redlining and white people leaving neighborhoods like South Central and Compton to live in Brentwood and Beverly Hills and those upscale suburban neighborhoods, basically. But I'm talking about the middle class neighborhoods that exist in most parts of America. How this book has shown me and simplified a lot of things for me, because that is racism in plain sight. White neighborhoods are good. Black neighborhoods are not good. Black neighborhoods are classified as hoods, and they're classified as ghettos. White neighborhood is literally classified as a suburbia, which sounds like a utopia, basically. And it's supposed to be for whites only. Non-white people are not supposed to be in these neighborhoods. That's why there's so many videos of Black men walking in suburban neighborhood getting stopped by a race soldier or a police officer. So I just wanted to get that out there, because I was really fascinated by the language and how the language is used in this book. Really simplifying these terms into really digestible words.
Well said, Mr. Brian. Did you still want to chime in?
I was gonna say, yeah, your the passage that you read from page 4, yeah, I underlined that passage as well, actually. Funny enough. But I guess I did underline another passage from page 4, right at the bottom of page 4, where it says, the basic creed of a racist is that Black people must be fooled, managed, and kept at a controllable level. I thought that first line there on the bottom there of the last paragraph there on page 4 was very, very constructive. And I think one of the basic ways that they fool Black people is so that most Black people in the world think that there is such a thing as a quote unquote good white person. And when I say good white person, as in there's such a thing as a white person in a system of racism, white supremacy, who's not are racist. And also a lot of Black people get fooled into thinking that, like we say, like the other passages we were discussing earlier, where we think that white people just don't understand. I remember Gus T. Renegade was talking on his show years ago to, I can't remember the guest he had on there, where he was saying it would have been absurd for a white person to make that statement even say 30 or 40 years ago. Like, these white people are just walking around, they just have no idea what they're doing to white people. They know. All white people, I think that's the biggest lesson that I learned from the cows, actually. And I think what he said on this book basically echoes that, where he said the basic creed of a racist is that Black people must be fooled, managed, and kept at a controllable level. And one of the biggest things there that I think Black people are fooled about in a system of race and white supremacy is that there's such a thing as a white person who is not racist.
Yeah, that is very dangerous. A victim not suspecting a racist suspect, a white supremacist, that has led to a lot of tragic arrangements, a lot of joke-produced offsprings, and probably could be argued that that is top three, one of the reasons why this problem is so prevalent and so persistent, is that probably a lot of, like, probably two, maybe 15 to 200 Black people, non-white people, actually are aware that, you know, we should be very suspicious of white people, suspected racists, and that's like a pitiful amount of us to have understanding that white people are there's something off about them, something incorrect, and even connecting the dot. There's millions of dots. Just right now, I'm reminded. Sir said that Black people live in things called ghettos, and during the Holocaust, they put the Semites in ghettos before they were eliminated in large numbers. So the racism, like, are Black people the new Semites being subjugated and dominated and exterminated? Of course, we have been since they have made contact with us. They being white people, racist man, racist woman. So it's really tragic. And that being said, this is a great segue to what I'm going to read here on page 5, which says, racism hidden in plain sight. Black people must begin to understand how to decode racism in the superfine stage. The first and most basic understanding is that modern racism is hidden in plain sight and is nothing short of a continuous campaign that has to affect the racial warfare implemented in broad daylight for all to see. How is racism hidden in plain sight? What is meant by the term in plain sight? It means that racism is in full view and everyone sees it, and some even acknowledge it, but very few know or understand what to do about it or how to decode it when they see it. So we're still at the stage where we're getting Black people to see racism and understand it, which is really tragic, but that's how far we've been retarded by the enemy. So I think developing and gaining the ability to see racism and decode racism has been a blast. And when I say blast, I mean it has been very constructive and it has been fun. But I'm able to see things and actually understand what I'm looking at, and not to be harmed by it because of the confusion it could have thrown my way. I'm able to perhaps experience music without understanding that I'm not a nigga or a bitch, and I don't want to go out and get bitches and go to clubs. I'm just listening to this noise to help me to do my workout, instead of hearing various racist programming that would have an effect on me. And me being able to see racism and decode it, I'm able to, I don't know, perhaps be protected by it.
You have to understand Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was done. Go ahead.
I was just saying we have to develop um a want to understand language and then realize how it's been used and weaponized against us. You know, and just adding on to what you were saying about the music. Yeah, I know the code says that it's either noise or range sounds. So yes, uh, when I'm not doing things of constructive value, such as working out, well, really, that's really the only time I listen to music. Arranged sounds. It would be considered
Same.
arranged sounds. Any other time, it is noise because I can't think, and I should be using the most of my time thinking how to solve this problem because it permeates everything within my existence. Now we can be on this constant feel good mission all we like. All that we're doing is just exhausting our energy. You know, to me, it seems that Black people, especially Black people in the Northwestern Hemisphere, and I'll say why I'm separating us right here. But it seems that we work hard in order to have a good time. You know, from coast to coast, Friday is a holiday every week. And don't let that Friday be payday. But I singled us out because we have a long history of living amongst Urugu. And we talk about them people, them folks. You know, we have our little code words for white people, but we don't want to look at the grand chessboard. You know, like your children, your grandchildren, like, do you want them dealing with the same shit? White people have always been a problem, always, all around the world. They have killed off millions of non-white people for the maintenance, expansion, and refinement of the system of racism, white supremacy. There is no statute of limitations on that. And somehow they've confused the non-white people of the known universe that as long as they write rules, what they want done on a piece of paper, we have to adhere to it. That is the mind fuck of all time. So my VGQ, that's it.
Yeah. You are correct. So I've had so many thoughts. So I guess
Can be heard?
Oh yes, you can.
So after listening, I think racism in plain sight is a great example of why it's constructive to talk about the problem, why it's important to discuss the problem, especially with people in different areas of the world. Because it shows how the system has really done a number on Black people when we can't even see the racist images right in front of us, such as he went in the book, he goes ahead and he sections them off, such as selling the suburban lifestyle, imaging the Caribbean islands, commercial financial institutions. And I wanted to read the opening paragraph or the opening couple sentences on the urban downtown, where he says, the urban downtown is one of the most blatant examples of racism in plain sight. The large buildings towering over the central city landscape are clear evidence of the hoarding of money, capital, and material resources based on race. These structures were built because white banks hoarded money and white businessmen were given preference over Black businessmen. Black entrepreneurs were denied capital and adequate financing to maintain, expand, and improve the quality of life in the Black neighborhoods. Black people have deposited billions of dollars into white-controlled financial institutions, and to this day have received back only a pittance of what has been deposited. And I was looking for a Black bank recently, just trying to invest in the community, and there was only one bank about 60 miles from where I live. That's the only branch, and I got to thinking about how I can go down the street. There's a Chase, there's a Bank of America, etc. But we talk about how we're like black people don't get any money, and that's like where all of our capital is, and that's how it's being used. And I don't think a lot of us realize that. We can talk about how the towers are blocking the sun, and that's why right where Black people live, that's why they're vitamin D deficient. But I don't think we realize kind of like what, at least I haven't. I haven't been able to put in the words in kind of like a concrete, consistent way that this is one of the ways that racism is being used. So I thought that this was a good portion of the book. But the hidden in plain sight, and to the 2000 Republican National Convention, right there at the bottom of the page, the tools, the symbols, and the decoded meaning. The one that really with the preaching, Black entertainment. So the tool is preaching, the symbol is Black entertainment, and the decoded meaning is we believe in the word together. So when Black people are doing these at these conventions, this is kind of this is the projection that they're putting out to people. This is the tool that's being used. I thought that was another good one for me. I always see the Black entertainment. We share a common culture, man. I think we as a group, and for me, really need to understand what these meanings are and the symbols that are being displayed all the time, 24/7, on every show, on TV in general. So back to Dr. Francis Cress Wilson again. Reading is more important than watching television. That's it for me.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the racism, like, it would be a great exercise if you could all share, like, if it comes to our brain computer, our own examples of racism hidden in plain sight. This text just allows me to contextualize like allows me to contextualize all of my interactions and happenings. For example, there's this suspected racist who the so-called groundskeeper around this the dwelling I occupy, and he's always, whenever he sees me, he's all like, hey buddy, and my code is just minimize conflict by minimizing and also minimizing my energy usage. So I just say one word only to him, which is howdy. I just say howdy. And but him calling me buddy is a racist attack because I'm a victim of racism. I'm not allowed to have buddies or friends, at best acquaintances and associates. Yeah, exactly. And they usually call name pets buddy. So I'm aware he's practicing racism against me by calling me what most Black people would believe to be a friendly, pleasant term. But I see it as racism, but I don't have the time and energy to correct it, because this racist suspect be walking around my area drinking alcohol 7 o'clock in the morning. So it's just, it is what it is. Tacky at best. Another
with that buddy.
I think another racism in plain sight thing I've noticed living around here and observing more victims of racisms, Black people, non-white people with white dogs. Yeah, I have a tiny white dog. A tiny white dog. I have a tiny white dog here. I don't know if our victim unit got it because subconsciously, well, actually, it was born out of a litter, and it was the only one that survived. But I wonder if I'm seeing all these white dogs owned by victims of racism, non-white people. I wonder if that means anything. Possibly so. I don't know. But back to the racism hidden in plain sight. He mentions is the many examples. One of them being the Caribbean islands. And I'm going to read this part on page 7 and chime in a bit. The kind of false presentation is perpetuated in the silhouettes of large public symbols of racial imperialism, such as the forts, prisons, slave chains, memorial statues, and ships. These open racist symbols are the clear public remnants of imperialism, racism, slavery, and colonialism. However, the racist history is shielded and hidden because of the effective use of coded racial images in language. So when you go to like a place like Jamaica and you hang out at all these resorts, you're getting served by Black people, and it's very pleasant. You know, this is all a great example of how racist men and racist women force victims of racism to live lies, to act on behalf of their system, because like resorts shouldn't exist. White people travel to other areas of the world they've dominated and conquered for vacation. You know, you have a resort, and right outside of those resorts gates is extreme poverty and extreme incorrectness, because these resorts have often become the only sources of money, of living that Black people in areas of the world have access to. So super incorrect. This portion reminds me, I just saw one of my associates post a picture on Facebook with her and her offspring in front of the Lincoln Memorial statue. And it's just, you know, victims taking pictures in front of white supremacists who were not trying to help us at all, because we do not understand anything. We don't understand the world we live in. We do not understand the structures in place all lead to racism and white supremacy. I have a clip here that is very reminiscent of what Kwaku said in the urban downtown. Before I play it, Mr. Ray, would you like to chime in before I play the clip?
Oh yes, I just wanted to add on to earlier we were talking about that white people calling you buddy, and that had just reminded me of other euphemisms that they would use, like bro and boss, chief, homie. I also see that as passive aggressive racism, and every Black male should develop the will to check that each time it's said to you. I understand what Mr. Fuller says. We're not men. At first I felt some type of way about that, but adhering to a code for me is just a pathway to attempted manhood. So, I mean, isn't that what you want to do, Black male? Attempt manhood. We've been laid out with this recorded history of our interactions with these people. What are we going to do? That's all I have, sir.
Yeah. I wanted to mention something that 0526 I mentioned about the Caribbean islands. I always suspected really negative things happen in those islands due to the existence of racism and white supremacy. But while reading this book, I was able to learn that the scripted language that the inhabitants of these island folks have to participate in. And it's the reason why the tourist business is still lucrative. People are still selling there, and they still have those racist plunderers statues up in Jamaica and the Bahamas and in Puerto Rico and all those other places. But I remember when I went to Barbados, I understood that when I say understood, I mean I didn't know much about anything at that point. I was very much brain trash when I was traveling in Barbados. But I did notice that there weren't any white people to be found, but I still noticed suspicious behavior and a lot of niggerization on the inhabitants, such as people attempting to fight me and the people that I was with, and having things stolen from me at the beach, and a slew of other negative things. And I recently learned that Jamaica has one of the highest murder rates supposedly in the world, which I thought was really interesting, considering that it's mostly a non-white territory. I could be incorrect about that, but I think it's mostly non-white people who live on that island. And on page 8, I wanted to read a bit about white domination and how I'll get back to this actually. I want to let someone else speak. I want to organize what I want to say.
Yeah. Okay. So let me. I'm gonna play up some clips. I'm gonna play a couple of clips, and but I'm gonna mention something earlier than I had planned. So hidden in plain sight, we have these examples here. On page 13, hidden in plain sight, we have a bunch of examples of how racism is hidden in plain sight. One of them is assassination of independent Black leadership. And that is a really frequent racist tactic hidden in plain sight. And September 12th, 1977, I believe that's 44 years ago. I am a nigger, so my math may be off, but September 12th, 1977, Steve Biko was killed by racist men and racist women for attempting to counter racism and white supremacy. So that happened 44 years ago. The white people like to call that anniversary. I don't think that is correct, but that is something that happened. And Steve Biko, Black male who practiced black self-respect. So I'm gonna play some clips, and then we're gonna see. I'm sure that will get folks' brain computers flowing, and we're gonna decode the racism hidden in plain sight in these clips. But first, let's play. Let's play this one first. Give me a moment. But Steve Biko, I hope he managed to transition in peace, no longer having to deal with the insanity on this vile planet. So let's get it. I'll play this for folks who may not know about Steve Biko.
It is better to die for an idea that will live than to live for an idea that will die.
Steve Biko was laid to rest in the simplest of fashions, his coffin carried by donkey cart in September 1977. His funeral was attended by 20,000 people, including diplomats from 13 countries, his close friend Donald Woods, and members of opposition parties. More could have packed in had security police not set up a cordon around the town. Biko's short life of just 31 years was packed with political activism. There had been deaths in detention before, but the country and world were shocked that someone with a statue of Biko could have died in this fashion. He'd been returning from a trip to Cape Town when he was arrested outside King Williamstown. His banning order had confined him to the town. The apartheid government viewed him as a threat, as he had been involved in NUSAS as a student, SASO, the Black People's Convention, and the organization most identified with him, the Black Consciousness Movement.
Black consciousness is an attitude of the mind and a way of life, the most positive call to emanate from the black world for a long time. Its essence is the realization by the black man of the need to rally together with his brothers around the cause of their oppression, the blackness of their skin, and to operate as a group to rid themselves of the shackles that bind them to perpetuate servitude.
His message of black pride resonated with both South Africa's oppressed and others worldwide. But state brutality grew alongside this message. Biko was taken to Walmer Police Station in Port Elizabeth and then to the notorious security police officers in the Sanlam building. The PE police were apparently determined not to show Biko the respect they believe he enjoyed from King Williamstown Police. Despite an inquest and later testimony by officers at the TRC, there's never been clarity on what happened on the night of September the 6th. Biko was examined by doctors. One said he was shamming, another recommended he receive medical treatment, but later allowed him to be transferred to Pretoria, naked and manacled in the back of a van. The official version of his death was that he had died of hunger. His death on this day leaving the then Minister of Police, Jimmy Kruger, to say it left him cold.
I'm going to be me as I am, and you can beat me or jail me or even kill me, but I'm not going to be what you want me to be.
Imagine if that mentality was shared. Imagine if victims said that we know we're not going to be niggers. We're not going to be niggerized people any longer. We're not going to allow this system of incorrectness any longer. And you're going to have to kill us all or produce justice. But that's Steve Biko for you, black male self-respect. Would have been nice to see more black females in that crowd with the black males, because it takes more than a black male. It takes a counterpart, a black female as well, to solve this problem. But still, to share that. And that's just one example of the destruction of black leaders, incarceration of so-called black leaders, black males, black people who are trying to solve this problem or counter this problem. My bad. Quite good. I didn't see the full screen. I often don't pay attention to the Zoom chat. So next time, say it, and I could do it. So yeah, folks like to comment on that before I play up the next one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm glad you said so-called black leadership, because it just puts me in mind of what Neely Fuller Jr. says about black leadership. There's really no such thing as a black leader in the system of racism, white supremacy, and I think that's proven right by the clip that you just played. There aren't any black so the bit on page 13 where it says the assassination of independent black leadership, and then it says brutal overthrow of independent black governments. I don't think there is such a thing as an independent black government since the beginning and during the system of racism, white supremacy. You can't be independent from the domination of racist man and racist woman. And I guess because we're talking about words and how important words are in terms of that, like I said, I think it's definitely really, really important that that's emphasized, that there is no such thing as a black leader in racism, white supremacy. And I do want to just say, I do agree with Helen B when she said earlier about the politically correct thing on the very first page where it says, however, the word, symbols, and images are much more than politically correct language. I think a definition of politically correct would have been useful there, because since we're talking about words and phrases and in the system of white supremacy and what they mean and how they can cause confusion. And on the very next page, page 4, where it says it is the Roman numeral 4, which is the IV, where it says, it is the intent of this work to show how words, symbols, colors, and images are used to nurture and sustain the practice of modern racism. I suspect that probably means refined racism. So I just underlined that part there. And on the same page, the second paragraph from the last one, where it says, I seek to expose racist and color-based discrimination practices that are detrimental to humanistic growth and development of all people. I don't know what the all people means there, if he's also including white people in that, if he means that humanistic growth and development of all white people. I think of all people, I don't know if that includes white people, because I think it's black people who have been denied the, humanistic growth that he's talking about here, and normal, if we can use that word, normal development. I think white people are not really affected by a system of racism, white supremacy. Not that I can see anyway, not that that's had a massive detrimental effect on white people. And also in the same paragraph, it says, those individuals or groups that wish to eliminate and correct racial injustice must support efforts to dismantle language communications that foster racism and white supremacy. I was always led to believe that racism and white supremacy are the same thing. So I don't know I can't speak for Kari and Aharo, but I'm not really sure what that means, foster racism and white supremacy, because I thought they were both the same thing. But no, yeah, that's what I've got for now.
Yeah, very well said. Counter racists, attempted to counter racists should understand racism, white supremacy, racism / white supremacy, racism equal white supremacy. They should understand that those two into being meaning the same thing. And one other thing. Oh no, go ahead, Mr. Sir.
Before you play the next clip, I found the bit I wanted to read about the islands and overall just how white people dominate black people.
Please do.
So on page 8 it reads, white domination is protected and hidden behind a veneer of black control. The most powerful forces on the islands are the financial, manufacturing, and tourist industries that are still white dominated and controlled. In order for black people to participate in the economic system, they must pretend that this control does not exist. They must go along with the fabrication and hide racism in plain sight to get the crumbs reserved for the black and other non-white people. I just wanted to read that because I think that's not only common in the Caribbean. I suspect that's common all across the globe. Everywhere on planet Earth, you have non-white people who are supposedly in powerful positions when in fact they are, being showcased and have to take orders from the white people who pay them and who tell them what to do. And I'm always turned off when I hear people mention, oh, look at Jay-Z, he's a business mogul, he owns Tidal. I'm pretty sure he doesn't own Tidal. I'm pretty sure he has a small stake in the organization while a bunch of white people profit off his name and off people thinking he owns it. And the same thing with how African nations are ran. I suspect them to be run by Westerners and not Africans.
Thank you, Mr. Sir. That's very correct.
Can I add something? I wanted to add to what Sir was saying. I guess that would maybe be a critique I may have saying, imaging of the Caribbean islands, because I do think that that's like global. Because I know that if that's happening in the Caribbean, that's definitely happening in Africa. There's a castle in Africa that is, one of the top tourist destinations, I guess you could say. It's a castle. But when they're advertising the whole year of return, I mean, I don't remember if it was called Doorway of No Return at the castle. So it's definitely happening globally. I mean, if anybody ever gets a chance to go or has been there, being in there, seeing how seeing the conditions. I don't know if this stuff. I imagine this stuff isn't being fabricated. These so-called dungeons and churches. I mean, it's hard not to understand why we are letting the enemy call us buddy and stuff like that. So I think that would be a critique I have of that. Seeing these kind of places, these castles, and they're seen as like tourist destinations. I think that's absolutely racism in plain sight. Promoting those places as places to go see. It seems like it kind of go both ways, but I think promoting that when white people see exactly what he's talking about in the book, it's like receiving two different images. You go there as a Black person, it's like, wow, look at how my ancestors have been living, but a white person goes there and he hears about his so-called uncle or great grandpa and living in the castle uptown, able to pick down whoever he wants. Yeah, racism in plain sight.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Delectable Negro and how Woodard is discussing his trip to the plantation and how the plantation tour guide, like, just putting those words together, plantation tour guide. We live in a system, we live in a society where white people love to visit and appreciate the good old days when they were able to own and victimize, sexualize non-white people, Black people at their will, more access than they do these days, it seems. But they like to go to on these trips. So Woodard discusses his time at a plantation where the plantation tour guide is telling the guests that the slaves were well fed, and Woodard, being a Black male practicing Black self-respect, had done his studies, and he knew about that plantation, and actually that he knew about slave culture and plantation culture. He knew that it was more likely that those slaves who were working on that plantation were probably 99.9% of starved slaves, because it's more profitable for a plantation master, white supremacists, to overwork the slave and feed them crumbs. That's more profitable than overworking your slave and feeding them enough food. White people don't care about non-white people. They care about material gains. So the importance of understanding racism and white supremacy, so that if you are at a place being called a dungeon and it's supposed to be some sort of like resort guide, why am I visiting a dungeon for vacation? It seems very incorrect, and that's because it is. And especially if you didn't learn about the horrors that took place in these dungeons that people call resorts and that take a visit. It's really, really, really incorrect. The racism in plain sight, the 2000 Republican National Convention seems like not too long ago, where Joe Biden was able to convince victims of racism to vote for him. even after he said that if you ain't black, if you don't vote for me, that's just another example of racism hidden in plain sight. These next clips are we're gonna be able to pick apart. Let's go over to Haiti, an area of the world that is consistently attacked and met with earthquakes that I suspect are not naturally occurring. And remember, we just talked about Brian mentioned Smoky Diamond just mentioned that we that the brutal overthrow of so-called independent Black governments. We just had the so-called leader of Haiti assassinated in front of his wife, so-called wife. But let's chime in. Let's check in with Haiti to see how incorrect they still are doing, thanks to racist man and racist woman. So I'll play this clip. I think I only need to play 2 minutes of it for us to get the picture, for us to see the racism hidden in plain sight.
The earthquake has left many lives in ruins. Since mid-August, 160,000 families here have been without homes. Thousands are injured. The hospitals are overcrowded. In the region of Les Cayes, southwestern Haiti, multitudes of people are in dire need of help, and not enough help is available. Tensions are running high. This aid transport is about to be looted. With rudimentary tools and their bare hands, a family removes the last remnants of their house. Ukal and Etiel say they're lucky to have helpful neighbors. But if they hadn't organized the entire effort themselves, nothing would have been done, says Ukal Gianeste.
Yes, I need help. I need help. Everything's wrecked. This was a big, beautiful house. Now just a little bit of it's left. We're doing our best. We're clearing everything out. But we need help to rebuild something new here.
Alrighty, I don't think I need to play anymore for us to get to a racist picture. White people have produced a system that literally conjures whatever white people want. Like, white people can accomplish anything. They've proven that they can do anything. We just had a individual person, Jeff Bezos, him and his associates. They went to space by themselves. The government barely helped them. So if white people wanted to help Haiti, they could. And the racism in plain sight I see here is Black people, the constant state of being in crisis. Remember that from the ISIS papers. Black people are always in a state of crisis, and the biggest crisis is being dominated, subjugated by a system of racism and white supremacy, which produces the conditions that we see here in Haiti. But we see technology. We see a maintenance of low-grade technology. I think they need more than sledgehammers and hacksaws to recover from an earthquake. But the white supremacists have allowed them to only use what we saw here in the video. And it's really incorrect to always having to see armed victims of racism, armed people when people need help. Why do we have to see people walking around with assault rifles instead of, I don't know, more advanced tools and equipment that could help to clear up the damage caused by this earthquake over here in Haiti. And we see the famine. Actually, I'm gonna go to the next clip. I'm gonna go to
the opening scenes were it was just despair and death, showing the hospitals being overcrowded. Can I be heard?
Yeah, yep.
being overcrowded, what would seem like being overcrowded, just continuously showing those images. And, you know, every face is a black one. You know, watching that, I can't help but feel ultimately pity. Like, just, it's damn, like, Black people, why, like, you feel sadness because this is happening to Black people. And then at the same time, just anger, because once again, it's happening to Black people. And this will continuously continue to happen to us because of the existence of racism, white supremacy, and the white people that practice it.
Yeah, and keep in mind the key words that Black male victim was requesting for was help. You know, we need help to eliminate the system of white supremacy. And we're gonna go to a different area of the world, Tigray, where white people have orchestrated two groups of Black people who are now in conflict with each other. And this is the result of the conflict that is allowed to happen by white people. Remember, everything we're seeing here, all conflict, all problems on planet Earth stem from white people allowing the maintenance of white supremacy racism. Let's check out and see what the victims over in the area of the world of Tigray can be expecting. Oh, and Kwaku, you're right. Black people are very much deserving of pity, and you feeling pity is an indication that you have not been sabotaged in your thinking, because most people can see this stuff and not give two craps. Most people see Black people suffering, and this is what they expect to see. This is their normal. This is what they want to see. So Black people deserve pity, but we rarely get pity from anyone, which is another tragic travesty we are having to deal with.
Onto the backs of camels among the last stocks of food aid in conflict-hit northern Ethiopia. The footage.
And pay attention, you're gonna see a pink individual, and it's just this whole clip is very interesting.
Released by the World Food Programme, reflects the severe humanitarian situation in Tigray, and it's people like mother of six Lete Mariam who are paying the price.
I couldn't sleep at night or think straight in the day thinking about what to feed my kids. I still think about how to provide for my kids.
Thousands have been killed and more than 2 million forced to flee their homes since the war broke out 10 months ago. Now the United Nations warns that a de facto blockade is bringing millions to the brink of famine. The WFP video was filmed at the end of August in northwestern Tigray. Sachin Tate is a WFP staff member in the area.
We don't have any food stocks at the moment to plan with or to distribute. Whatever we have is currently being distributed or has already been distributed.
More aid has since materialized. 100 trucks covering 3,500 metric tons of food and other supplies arrived on Sunday. But the WFP called that a drop in the ocean and says that 100 trucks need to be arriving every day to meet the needs of the population. A spokesperson for Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has dismissed allegations that the Ethiopian government is blocking food aid. The UN has called on all parties to the conflict to allow the movement of supplies into the region. It says 5.2 million people, or 90% of Tigray's population, urgently needs humanitarian assistance. That includes 400,000 already facing famine conditions. The world body has also warned that the spread of fighting to the neighbouring Amhara and Afar regions has exacerbated the crisis, uprooting at least 300,000 more people and meaning another 1.7 million need food aid.
Alrighty, so this is what's taking place in the area of the world of Tigray, and if you were with us when we did our news segments way back when, we also reported on this area of the world where the United Nations were raping the Black females at a high rate, at high rates, and that falls under the massive rape of Black women. We got that aspect of racism hidden in plain sight. The United Nations can, white people operate the United Nations can be thanked for that. We got black, we got black on black religious, tribal, community, and gang warfare, because these are black people in conflict with another, courtesy of white people. We got the food. We got like the lack. Literally, it's really important to understand the words that were used here, because did the broadcaster, he said that this food materialized, keyword materialized. So some food did materialize, and white people wanted to, more food could materialize. If white people wanted to, those food trucks that are needed, those 100 food trucks that are needed to sustain those black people, those could also materialize if white people wanted them to. But white people do not care to help and to allow black people to exist without massive suffering or without massive loss of life, loss of existence. So I'm sure there's more that other folks picked up, man. Racism hidden in plain sight, and what's going on in the clip I just showed. It's a 1/0.
Yes, I was just pointing out that white male didn't experience he didn't seem to be experiencing any famine or hunger, and as he was talking, talking about how the resources were exhausted, they showed the scene of these big empty warehouses, but when the cameras turn off, where does he go back to eat?
Excellent observation and question. I thought the same thing. The mass starvation of millions of black people. That is what it looks like could be happening over that area of the world. They said 2 million people facing famine. Famine is often been used as a euphemism for, that means a lot of people are going to starve to death, which is should never be the case on a planet with such an abundance of food. But white people, racist man, racist woman, do not care about non-white people. They care about their mistreatment and their domination. So billions of reasons to want to solve the problem. Non-white people, it's up to us. White people are not going to help us until we get them to settle on our terms, which is produce justice or kill us all.
Yeah, I wanted to add for two things that I saw first in the video were that how dark everyone was, and then the second thing was the that there weren't really any black males walking around either. A lot of it was women with children. So definitely racism in plain sight. I think once again the death despair is seen, and I it was just so painfully and hopelessly, powerlessly honest, seeing that white male, that white racist suspect there to manage the food for them. I don't understand why, first off, there has to be a white person there managing the food for the people. I imagine if you gave them the food, they could do with it themselves. But more importantly, he was there to deliver the message, just basically saying these people are going to die. These people are going to they are going to suffer, and they're going to continue suffering. One thing about them being dark skinned as well, I know he said it was northern Ethiopia. From what I've seen in the past about the war, I believe it's pronounced Tigray, but I think it's between Ethiopia and Eritrea. I could be incorrect, but oftentimes when you see Ethiopia or think of what's projected in the media is light skinned people. Once again, I think we need, it's painfully obvious that racism in plain sight, that this is happening to dark people, dark skinned people.
I'd say that was an excellent choice of clips there, or should I say constructive choice of clips there from 0526, I'd just like to say, and I think that starkly illustrates the on page 13 where it says the overthrow of independent black governments, and I think that's why I underlined that part there in the book there where it says independent black governments. I do have a problem with that little statement there, like I illustrated before, and I think those clips that you showed there illustrate that starkly, right? There are no such things as independent black governments because they're not independent from the system of racism, white supremacy. They're not independent from the influence, the deception, or the violence of that system of white supremacy. So, usually like what Ray was saying earlier, which I agree with as well, where he was talking about like how white supremacists have those ironic names for us, like boss, etc. They know that we're not the boss of anything. And like in the Caribbean islands, etc., they have, when we appear that we're independent nations or etc., we have these places, these countries that are run by black people. They just appear to be. I mean, in Jamaica and Barbados, for example, there's a massive sex tourism industry there where white women routinely go over to Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean islands for sex tourism, where they pay black men a couple of pounds here and there or whatever, or a couple of dollars here and there to sleep with them, and then they run back to wherever they come from and stuff like that, to wherever part of Europe they come from.
Yep, sexual tourism. I think that's what a code word they use for that, for those behaviors. Really, so yeah, I think I wish I could beam, like, just the cost of responsibility of us, of non-white people, to solve this problem into our victims' minds. That would be possibly constructive in getting us, thinking about the problem, because this is not gonna stop. Tigray, Haiti, these are just two areas of the world. This is happening throughout the planet, black people. I have a couple of more clips. This is the last one I'm gonna play. We're taking it, bringing it here, northwestern hemisphere, San Francisco. Still racism hidden in plain sight, but you really have to know what you're listening to, and what kind of where we're living in to kind of even get. Like, the average person would think this is a very boring clip, and why are they putting this on the news? But we're gonna listen to about 2 minutes of this one, and then that will be all the clips for today.
Millennium Tower, downtown San Francisco. Well, it's kind of over there on the left through the fog. Problem-plagued skyscraper is now getting the attention of City Hall. KPIX5's Max Darrow joins us now to explain why repairs to fix the leaning structure are currently on hold. Max?
Last month, excavation work here on Fremont Street was paused after engineers discovered that the luxury high-rise building had sunk not only an extra inch, but it tilted 5 more inches. Now a San Francisco supervisor is stepping in. Construction is on hold at San Francisco's leaning Millennium Tower and has been for the past several weeks. Supervisor Aaron Peskin doesn't want it to start back up until a new and independent review panel of experts gets their eyes on the project and has called for a hearing on the matter.
I would like there to be a pause until we know what we're doing, and I think that construction should not resume until we've impaneled the best experts that this country has.
Peskin has been closely monitoring a so-called perimeter pile upgrade to prop up the Millennium Tower ever since he first heard about it 2 years ago.
And the fact that there's been a big setback is, needless to say, very frustrating.
Back then, the Board of Supervisors recruited 2 geotechnical engineers to review the proposed fix. Those experts warned it could cause further loss of groundwater, which is likely to cause more irreparable damage to the building's substructure.
It would appear that for whatever reason, that fix may be exacerbating the rate of sinking and tilting, which by all accounts had slowed until this project was undertaken. I want to get to the bottom of it.
I can state that with confidence that the process and the integrity of the engineering review for this project was sound.
Emily Guglielmo is the past president of the Structural Engineers Association of Northern California.
I would trust what is being communicated through the engineers, the review panel, the city, which is to say there is no cause for alarm, that the building is still capable of withstanding code required loads.
She says the current plan to drill 52 new piles down to bedrock on Mission and Fremont Streets and then connect them to the building's foundation was vetted by an engineering design review team of top experts.
Has this been done before, the specific plan that's in action right now?
I don't know that it's been done with this level of visibility or maybe on this magnitude, but it's definitely a known engineering solution.
But this engineer is not so sure.
I would say it definitely comes across as ambitious.
Rune Storzund is the executive director of the UC Berkeley Center for Catastrophic Risk Management.
I'm not sure that we're on the verge of structural collapse. But again, you know, this building is situated in a highly urbanized area. If things did go awry, it would be very catastrophic.
He says it's time for fresh eyes on the whole situation and more transparency from the building department.
Basic stuff like, have you figured out, you know, at what point does the building go from safe to unsafe? And I think that transparent process is much more meaningful and comfortable likely for the public than what we're currently seeing, which is no information.
The Department of Building and
Alrighty, so this is an example of the urban downtown of the luxury high rises towering over the poor, houseless victims of racism. And what's interesting about this particular luxury high rise is that it could possibly collapse, not anytime soon, but just that possibility. And if it were to collapse, you know, the people affected the most would be, I suspect, the victims of racism who live below the tower. So it's really interesting. And also you have to remember the code words. Urban is the code word for non-white, nigger, black people. You know, so I think it's really interesting. This could be one of this could just be a time bomb that white people are just setting up, and at a moment they decide that it's best, they will allow the building to come crumbling down, perhaps if it's a good enough investment for them to do so. But this is actually kind of scary because I know where Mission and Fremont Street are, and it is where it was a place that was once possibly a thriving area where Black people were quite comfortable, but now they've been sabotaged with the drugs, with the taking of their homes. Reminded of that film, The Last Black Man in San Francisco. But really interesting. I'll see if this building is still standing in a couple of years, maybe 2025. We'll see. Mr. 150.
Yes, it almost put me in the mind of the Grenfell Towers in London. I wonder if any of our victims of racism across the pond had anything to say about that. But that urban word. Now, yes, the white supremacists do use the word urban to describe areas where non-white people stay. But look at the term that they use to describe where they stay, suburban communities. I wonder, where is that coming from? Anyone ever think about that?
Actually, because sub doesn't that mean beneath, below? below the urban. So yeah, it should be high urban.
Yeah, by their own admission, they say in suburban communities. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's a bit of that unconscious psyche peeking through.
Yes, possibly. We could spend all day decoding and finding examples of racism hidden in plain sight, and also discussing the words and images that white people have used and still use to maintain the system. But I think that we have done a very thorough job of discussing the first 14 pages of the text. There's still many.
Sorry, I'd like to just make a quick comment on the suburban.
Oh,
Isn't
please
it
do.
like
Please do.
just a way to further break down like sub-Saharan, like desert in a sense. So whatever they mean by that, could that play into this urban community sense of like maybe just bordering around it? So I'm on my bike. So bordering around it, so therefore having control over it in a sense. So like they have complete access to the urban communities, but our kind of access to the suburban is kind of territorial, whereas everything is in the inner city, like lunch, dinner. Like, anyway, that's all I can say for that at this moment in time.
Yes, ma'am. So from page 12 to page 14, there's a bunch of examples of racism in plain sight. He has made a chart. Kyrie and Aharo has made a chart for us. I'm just gonna read a few that stands out to me, and I think dark skin, nappy hair, thick lips, and broad noses as ugly and undesirable. That is interesting because now people are paying for bigger noses and thicker lips. So that's really interesting how they have sabotaged the Black mentality to hate itself, and then the white people go out and pay the white, and the non-white, non-Black people go out and pay to look like Black people. It's really bizarre, incorrect, but should be expected if you understand the insane system we are occupying within. Gang banging and drive-by shootings. Me and my brother have ran from a number of these situations. It used to be so normalized in my existence that I thought it was just a part of being a Negro. It's just what we do. How are you a Black person and you haven't ran from gunfire? It doesn't make sense to me. The welfare state dependency, all Black people are dependent on white people, which is kind of ironic because the biggest recipients of welfare is racist men and racist women. The whole system of white supremacy is welfare for them 24/7. Clothing, this part, I'm often reminded that like back in the day when I used to see documentary on the continent of so-called Africa, I would always see like poor Black people wearing like Adidas shirts, Tupac shirts. I would wonder how do they get these clothes? How do they get these clothes? They're not even from there. But now, I'm reminded. I learned that everything that we have is literally allowed for us to own, and most likely 9 times out of 10, some way, shape, or form came from some white institution, facility, organization. Continuization. This is my last one I'm gonna read. I do encourage all victims to buy this book. Race Code War, very constructive, very necessary in understanding what is happening on planet Earth. But the final one I will read, the continuation of wars and destabilization campaigns in Africa, North, South America. So these concepts and these wars, Afghanistan, the so-called endless war, largely is taking place and what used to be known as North Africa, but the white people are called it the Middle East now. I suspect this war has lasted for so long because the white people want as many resources as they could get from that area of the world in Afghanistan. And for folks who do not know, like poppy seeds, heroin is a resource that one can acquire from that area of the world if they wanted to. So this is why we see Tigray and the state that it is. This is why we see the Middle East and it's a state that it's in. So white people, they need these wars. And who here is aware that when the white people invaded Iraq and Afghanistan, that it only took them about, I think, 20 days or a couple of weeks to eliminate Al-Qaeda, and then the people that they allowed to be in charge in the Middle East, they wanted to surrender, and and when there's a war, the people who are doing the war, they usually have negotiations after a party surrenders and the war ends. But this time, white people said, no, we understand that we have defeated you, but we're not going to negotiate with you. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing. And what they were doing was killing them endlessly, killing Afghanistan males and females, raping them, destroying their infrastructure to the point where they went from having working electrical grids, like working homes and sustainable homes and whatnot, to literally living like the Stone Age days. So white people are super serious, super serious about this race code war, and black people, non-white people are very silly. So we got to change our thought, speech, and behavior. We have so many scholars who have given us the materials. We just need to use it. That's my final comment, closing comment. And I'll let folks share theirs.
If anyone's not going to go, I'll can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Hello. Okay. Yeah, I was going to say on the on page 12, the racism in plain sight chart. I think it's quite a constructive list on 12, 13, and 14. And I think it's a really good idea, probably, to get us, attempted counter-racist brain computers to work on that list that he's provided here, and possibly even add to the list as well. Like, for example, where he's got the economics on page 12, it says economics, constant denial of bank loans in black neighborhoods. And I guess probably like in Neely Fuller's code book, where he says the basic definition of economics is time and energy, and in that in that spirit there, where it says the social impact of the economics being controlled by the white supremacists, it says accelerates deterioration of the black community. I would say if when they control your time and energy, it also encourages you to spend your time and your energy as non-constructively as possible. So example, like celebrating and dancing and singing whilst in a war, basically. And further down it has media, lack of ownership, proliferation of racist images. And I'd say it also, so the social impact of that, the media, lack of ownership, proliferation of racial images, it says racial profiling, stereotyping as criminals. And I would say that media ownership also contributes to self-hate, self-harm, and also a desire to engage in non-constructive behavior. And also the part where he talks about sex. Another example of racism in plain sight, where it says sex, interracial sex, homosexuality, bisexuality, and pornography, and the social impact is poor male-female relationships, low marital rates. I'd also add to that, it also contributes to less of a desire to eliminate racism and an inability to recognize racism, white supremacy when you see it. Definitely that's been my experience of a lot of non-white people who are in so-called interracial sex kind of arrangements or tragic arrangements with those who classified as white. Yeah, that's all I've got on page 12.
Yeah, I had some more examples of racism, plain sight. And these are things that I just experienced and observed. One of them is being followed around in stores as a Black human, a person classified as Black. I think every single non-white person on planet Earth probably has been followed around a store by either a white person or a victimized non-white person. I also think another example of racism, like plain sight racism, is white people and non-white people crossing the streets when they see Black people approaching, clenching their bags, like patting their pockets when Black people are near them, very close by. And this is something that I observe every single day when I leave my house. It's either even non-white people do it now, and I'm even seeing Black females do the exact same thing that white females and white males do. It's just double check their pockets, hide their bags whenever they see a big, scary Black man in their peripheral or in their proximity. I think those are all examples. And another example is just the how the Black child in the classroom is either constantly being sent to the office or constantly in trouble or constantly showing off. It's just, I think there's literally infinite examples. And those are some of the few that I came up with. Well, I didn't make it up. I just experienced it, and I'm telling you what happened. Yeah.
Thank you. Really, really well said. And experiences we all can definitely recall. I know I can. Closing comments for anyone?
Hi, this is Miles. I'm going to be speaking for certs until I can load up my computer. I just arrived home. I'm catching up on some of my notes. I had I can't remember the name of the actual page, but hidden in plain sight in a description that they had given in terms of white people, Europeans naming their organizations something like, I don't know, the Teddy's Committee or something, but it having all this racial undertones that highly suggest that they are not for Black people, and the Black people that do end up going into these things quickly realize that they're like the only ones there and are codifiedly like put in a merry-go-round or round in circles in a sense to like not be for that whatever institution or organization, for it not to be constructed for them. And as soon as they're out the room, it's almost like the room would come alive in a sense, so they can actually be themselves in spaces. We are the only ones I see who name our organizations, some like this organization is for Black profits, or this organization is for Black only, or this, I don't know, FUBU, this one's for us. In a sense, like we have this very upfront nature about us that really shows the kind of character and culture that we have. Whereas white supremacy has a lot, by looking at the way that they codify and name their organizations and just put something strategic there, like you need to be part of the British Psychological Society, which is a classist method of removing authority or removing some form of validation to whatever you have to offer, what you can bring, because it'll be really hard to get into these kind of societies, or it requires a level of white presenting or white academia for you to present or to show that you have a heavy conditioning and to be accepted into these societies. And you find that the Black people like in these institutions or societies are very much, they seem tired, irritable, and frustrated, and they are the scapegoats or the
the officers in charge of the other Black people who come around. You see it in stores that are predominantly white and there's only one Black person. They are usually overworked, frustrated side, and the angry one. And then the European co-worker will come in and act as if they're calm and will call in the situation where it's very clear that Black person is under a lot, that victimized person of color is under a lot of pressure. That's my commentary that I got from Hidden in Plain Sight. On page 12, I thought it would be a very good exercise, as I believe the one with the images of smoke and damages had said, sorry not to say your name, but had mentioned earlier where just adding in, I thought it would be a good exercise if we had go through each of us just name an area in which they've stated evidence of racism in plain sight and the social impacts, and then just see as an exercise what extra social ways can we come up with or observe that it's impacted us socially, psychosocially, economically. And I'll start. So politics, and the statement is no real representation or control of political finances, and the social impact is maintenance of political powerlessness. I believe another social impact is the normalizing of it being okay to not be aware of political, the importance of what's going on politically, like the language in which they use in the media is very much, it's labeled, it's stated in a way that it's not meant to cause any attraction of anybody, that's any youths. It's not meant to, you'd never see an association with like hip hop music and the point I'm trying to drive at is there is a very big normalization. The social impact is that there's a very big normalization of not being aware and classified of actual academia, like intelligence can be used for, like, I don't know, creating technology, and you can be praised if you can come up with the newest, I don't know, iPhone gizmo, but making social commentary on political standpoints and your own political standpoints and what you do for your community is very, not to say taboo, but it's media has designed it to be only a certain type of person will care about that. And if you are too far to the left, or you're too obvious about your own racial standings and your own political standpoint, you can almost be a conspiracy theorist in a sense. So yeah, I'd leave it at that. I just thought it'd be a good exercise to do amongst ourselves.
Thank you, Miss Nebula, for sharing your words. If folks would like to answer Miss Nebula's question or share a closing comment, feel free to do so.
For my closing comment, I just wanted to say, can I be heard?
Yep.
Okay. The whole list on page 13 is just kind of the evidence that is needed. I think that's even stated in the subheading of it. This is how racism is being practiced, that the white people allow to happen on the globe. So white people saying that they're ignorant or unaware of it, there's just no way possible. There's no way possible that white people are ignorant of this kind of activity going on this grand of scale on the planet. So I'm just gonna end it there. That's my closing comment.
Appreciate it. I'm gonna answer Mary's question really quick. I'm gonna try to be brief. Media, lack of ownership, proliferation of racist images. racial profiling, stereotyping as criminals. All right, so, and in regards to media, I can't hop on any social media map without seeing the victimization, the effects of the victimization that non-white people have been through. I can't get on social media without seeing Black people, non-white people being silly, stupid, and or primitive. And I think that is racism, white supremacy 101, keeping the victims surrounded by racism. I leave my house, which I'm about to do right after this. I'm gonna walk down a dirty street. I'm gonna see incorrect things. I'm gonna see homeless people at this store I'm going to. So, and I think that's a part of media too, because it's in my face. It's there. But that's it. That's it for me. I done my closing comment, and that's the question. Folks, other people have to chime in. Please go ahead.
This has been a constructive business meeting, and I appreciate everyone offering their own VGQ. And let's get this problem handled expeditiously. I look forward to the next meeting.
I think another example of racism in plain sight is just how non-white people live. How often you'll find that a lot of non-white people have to share one house. There'll probably be like several generations of one family living in the same house. That's racism in plain sight. And then people take pride in it, and they'll say, "Oh, we can fit 15 people in one car. Or, like, we got 20 people in one apartment." Racism in plain sight, definitely racism in plain sight. And also, some non-white people just live in very, very deplorable positions and environments where their housing could be quite infested / dirty with creepy callers. And closing comments, very great meeting. I really enjoyed this book, and I can't wait for the next one.
For my closing comments, I will go with the quote, or a quote from page 4. It's the quote at the very top. Whether in South Africa, Washington, D.C., or Detroit, areas where Black people are supposed to be in charge, Black people are still dependent on the expertise, money, technology, and thinking of white people. And good business meeting. See everyone next time, white people permitting, and if we're allowed to use Zoom. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Sid. Thank you, Dan. Closing comments. Final call.
In terms of racism hidden in plain sight, I definitely just want to add that one in as well, where sometimes when white people are expressing an opinion that, racism doesn't exist, or racism is not that bad, or they're denying that they know what racism is, and sometimes non-white people look at that as if the white person is just expressing an opinion. To me, that is maximum deception on the part of those white people. So that's another example of racism in plain sight. And also, actually, I would just like to say, I'd say in terms of reading this book, I found this book very, very constructive up to this point, I think. And I'm really enjoying just paying close attention to the actual words that are used in this book. One last example I was going to just use on that was on page 14, where he says, Ari Anaharo says, nappy hair, thick lips, and broad noses are viewed as ugly and undesirable. Presumably, he's saying that they're viewed as ugly and undesirable by the white supremacists, right? Now, I wasn't even aware that Black people had nappy hair or thick lips or broad noses. I don't think we have nappy hair, thick lips, or broad noses. I mean, nappy hair or thick lips in comparison to who? Or broad noses as in comparison to who? To white people. I didn't know that white people were the standard, right? So I'm not even really sure if maybe let me see, widely recognized black phenotypes or features are looked upon as ugly and undesirable by white supremacists. I think that probably would clear up a bit of confusion there, because I don't think we do have thick lips or broad noses or nappy hair. I think black people just have hair, and we have noses and we have lips. It's I don't really like comparing ourselves to white people, because white people are not the standard. But anyway, I think that this meeting's been very, very constructive. It's been excellent, very, very constructive hearing other people's views on this. I'm really, really looking forward to next week now.
As am I. Thank you. Go ahead, Miss B.
Excellent business meeting. Gave me lots to think about, and I'm enjoying learning a lot from other people's perspective, etc. And can't wait till next week.
Alrighty, I thank everyone for being here, and I'm gonna end it there. Thanks to folks from the YouTube for participating with your eyes. Like and subscribe if you haven't. Get to the algorithm to help us get more victims to get less confused. That's all.